Joining us now, NBC's Gabe Gutierrez reporting from the White House, CNBC's Steve Liesman. With me on set, NBC's Christine Romans and independent journalist Philip Bump. Christine, in the meantime, with all these tariff ups and downs, this is what Yale's Budget Lab found. They calculate the inflationary effects of tariffs will cost a typical household an average as much as $2,400 this year. So let me start with the question people want to know. What's going up and when?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how much and when, but we know that there are a lot of big costs in the pipeline now that have to be either absorbed by companies, which they've been mostly doing, or passed on at some point to consumers. I think the first place to look is food. You know, fish, olive oil, meat, cheeses, these things that have pretty low margins that are going to see higher prices coming into the U.S. right now. And in many cases, these are things that we don't make. Bananas, for example, Brazilian coffee. These are things that we know prices will start to rise up pretty quickly. And we have seen inflation picking up a little bit here. But for the most part, all of the last 6 months has been threats and drama and deadlines. And now we're in it, Chris. Now we're in it in this moment where you've got significant tariffs on a lot of countries, and those tariffs have to be paid at the border.
And one of the things that the president has been saying, Philip, is, all of this money is already pouring in. In fact, according to the New York Times, $152 billion in customs collections through July. But my question is, can voters be won over by Donald Trump saying, look at all the money I'm getting here for the government, if they go to the grocery store and their bill is way up, or they can't afford to buy that new refrigerator?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to remember that Donald Trump's election in 2024 was heavily centered on the idea that prices have gone up so much in the wake of COVID under the Biden administration. You know, and he talks about all this money pouring in, but we all recognize that it's not going to be pouring in, that it's actually be flowing from one part of the United States, consumers' pocketbooks, into the federal government. It's effectively a tax. And so while we have seen the business community really sort of taking it on the chin in hopes, in part, that this wouldn't unfold the way that Donald Trump had always threatened, hoping they could keep the prices down by either ordering in advance or just absorbing some of the costs now, they're not going to be able to do that forever, which means prices for everyone else is going to go up, which means, yes, there's going to be more money going to the federal government, but it's coming from us and not from overseas.
Yeah. So, Gabe, I think anybody who's paying attention, well, no one expects this to be the final chapter of Trump's trade war. So what are we watching for next?
Oh, certainly, Chris. Well, we're watching for a lot. You remember the administration promised several months ago 90 deals in 90 days. That has not happened. There's still a lot of outstanding trade deals to be done here. But the administration doesn't seem to be bothered by that, at least not publicly. They say negotiations continue with those countries that they still haven't hit trade deals with. There are a number of countries, for example, Brazil and soon to be India, facing high tariffs of 50%. And so we do expect those negotiations to continue. Now, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was out this morning trying to sell this changing of the global economy, that's remaking, so to speak. Listen to what he had to say right here on MSNBC.
We are trying to rebalance trade in America's favor. President Trump has said, and I've said, we want to bring back the high-precision manufacturing jobs. We want to get rid of these big deficits that we have with countries that have created these big surpluses, and the gutted our manufacturing base right, and have been terrible for American workers.
Now, the administration is touting this investment by Apple, announced yesterday, another $100 billion for a total of $600 billion since over the last several months, is proof that these tariffs are working to bring back manufacturing here to the U.S. But one big question looming over all of this, Chris, by the way, what happens in the courts? Will the courts potentially strike down this tariff policy? It's something that President Trump acknowledged even himself earlier today in a Truth Social post, where he talked about the potential for what he called a left-leaning court to strike down this policy, something that the administration is certainly watching out for. But for the moment, these tariffs moving forward, Chris.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Well, let's talk about Tim Cook, Philip. Did you see the custom plaque that he gave to the President of the United States? I think we can show it to you. It's a 24-karat gold base. It has, you can see, a very specific kind of plaque, right, of course engraved with the President's name, was given. He also gave Trump what he really wanted, right? That promise that Gabe just mentioned, $100 billion in investments in the U.S. But again, is it realistic to say, well, manufacturing is coming back? Like Tim Cook, powerful guy, can he snap his fingers and all of a sudden all the products that they get from abroad are made in the United States?
Yeah, no, I mean, he can't snap his fingers and do that. And certainly, it is the case that a lot of manufacturers could build facilities here.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen. And we saw it happen during Trump's first term. There are a lot of places that said, oh, we're going to bring this back. Didn't always happen. Remember Foxconn in Wisconsin, this big splashy thing Trump said was going to happen and ended up not happening. I think what we see there, though, is really, really indicative because it is the showering of gifts upon Donald Trump. It is the giving him the talking points he can use.
It almost looks like an award,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's currying favor.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. It's currying favor in order to try and make sure that the tariffs that are on Apple products can potentially be lessened. All of this is about negotiations at the whim of the president. So if you get on the president's good side and he says, okay, well, you know what, Apple, your stuff coming in, you don't have to worry about the tariffs anymore. That's a win for Apple. Is it a win for American consumers? Is it a win for the process? No, but this is why Apple's doing what it's doing.
Yeah, and we should say, just for fun, we don't know how much that weighs, but gold's what, $3,300 an ounce, and I'm guessing that weighs more than a few ounces. Christine, we were talking about these multiple trade deals that did get announced, notably EU, Pakistan, South Korea. But negotiations are still in place, including with Brazil, in spite of, what, a 50% tariff. And in a lot of these cases, those negotiations continue even after a so-called deal is in place. I mean, where's the deal?
Right. I mean, so
have you read the deals?
So the paper, we've all been searching for what's the paper. They haven't papered all of these deals. And in fact, multiple outlets reporting that both sides sometimes are interpreting things in different ways, or assuming that there are some carved out or exemptions for certain categories. We're still talking to the U.S., is still talking to China, still talking to Mexico. These are two of the biggest trading partners, and that's still TBD. So these are not traditional trade deals that have spent years being every single little possible angle been covered. This is more like the president has decided a number, and he has declared that number, and now that number is the tariff as of midnight last night.
Which brings me full circle, Steve Leisman, back to the first question, which is ultimately, what does this mean for you, for me, for every American? The newest CNBC All-America Economic Survey just dropped today. What does it tell us?
It tells us that Americans are concerned about inflation in about the same percentages they were in the last quarter in our April survey, by 37 to 60%. They're concerned that inflation is rising faster than their incomes. They are negative on tariffs by a 45 to 51, and they see tariffs as hurting workers and raising prices. So the whole tariff story is not playing well with the American public. Republicans seem to be more or less behind it, but Democrats and independents are not. So we don't have to guess what Americans think. We have it here in our national survey of 1,000 people nationwide, and the tariffs don't play well. In fact, most of the president's program doesn't play well. His economic approval rating and his overall approval rating are both underwater. In fact, the economic one is below the overall one, which was not the case in the first term. He was really held up by people's views on how he was handling the economy. That's not the case any longer.
About 15 minutes into the trading day, Steve, I did check the Dow. It was up. Now I think it's down again. What, a couple hundred, 300 points? What's going on? Are tariffs what's being reacted to here?
I feel like the market is of very different minds. They wake up one morning and they're ignoring the tariffs, and they're able to ignore them for a little while. And then you come in the morning and you have a headline, I forget, it was the New York Times, Trump's tariffs take a hold worldwide or globally or something like that. I think the market's been a little bit, what's the right word, too sanguine about the tariff outlook. I think that when we see numbers like we saw in the revisions to the jobs report, we've seen the GDP numbers weaken, I think it'll have a profound effect. And the kind of irony about all this is economists, and especially conservative economists, have argued for a very long time that if you raise taxes on people or raise taxes on a particular item, you'll get less of it. Well, guess what? You're going to raise essentially a 15% import tax across the board that will largely be paid by consumers, and you're going to have an impact on GDP, you're going to have an impact on jobs, and you're also going to have an impact on inflation. There is no so-called immaculate taxation, which is sort of what the administration is arguing.